What if I told you that you only need to fix 2 things to become the most productive person you know? Hi there, my name is Evelyn Weiss. I've built a $6 million online business and I'm serving thousands of paying members every single month. Today I asked them what video they'd like me to create and I got a lot of questions around my productivity. People want to know my secrets, and to be honest, I think it's a lot simpler than a lot of people make it out to be. I believe that you only need to fix 2 areas, which is the what you're working on and how you're working on them, to massively uplevel your productivity. So without further ado, let's jump right in. Okay, so first things first, we need to start with what are we working on? Because there is no productivity without clear priorities. Think about it. If you don't know where your goal is, you don't know when you're making progress towards it. So your number one priority always needs to be to have vision and goal clarity. This is also why I just released very recently a long video with a one-pager business plan process to help online educators, content creators, course creators to gain clarity around how to aim for big goals, then productize and monetize their experience. So if you're unsure about what your goals are and how you're getting there, this is your number one priority. Get clear about the goal, get clear about the path so that you can prioritize on a daily basis. Now, what are we working on? Once you have clarified your goals, once you know your vision, it is not a once done act. It's actually something that you need to reinforce and regain clarity on a daily basis. So what I have been doing for years is that I sit down every morning before I start working on anything and I brain dump everything that I think I need to be doing on the day. So I completely empty out the mind and I write everything down. I used to do this in many different forms. Sometimes I would take notes on my phone, sometimes I would type it on the laptop, but what I find is the most effective is if I just grab a blank page and a pen and I just write everything out. So I empty it out completely. What I do next is that I use the Eisenhower matrix to prioritize my tasks for the day. If something is important and urgent, I will get it done. It comes up on the top of my to-do list. If something is important but not urgent, if I have time on that day, I will get it done. If I don't have time on that day, I will schedule it. If something is not important but urgent, I will try to delegate it. I will try to find help to get it done. If I can't do that, I will try to renegotiate if this is actually something that needs to be done. Very often, something can go from urgent to not urgent, not important at all, if we're resetting an expectation, if we're having a conversation with someone. So I will try to have non-important but urgent things either delegated or completely off my to-do list. And then there's not important, not urgent things, and I don't touch them at all. Again, it all comes down from looking at my goals and then matching the tasks I have identified, I have brain dumped with those goals. And the most time is really found in deletion. Just because something is exciting and I want to do it, I'm not putting it on my to-do list. I'm only putting it on my to-do list if it's aligned with my goals, and I will make sure that I'm matching the urgency and importance with the priorities top to bottom of my to-do list. One thing that I'm naturally good at and that a lot of people are struggling with is I know where I get the most bang for my buck. That means when I deploy effort somewhere, I can estimate pretty well where I will get a high return on my effort. Now, I know that that's something that's difficult for a lot of people, so I want to introduce another tool for you. It's again a matrix, and that's the impact effort matrix. So basically what you do is you look at things that you want to do and you say, okay, what would be the impact towards my goal of that task, right? Now you match that impact with the effort that it takes for you to complete the task. If it has a high impact and low effort, that's a quick win. You want to knock that off quickly because it will give you and your business a lot of momentum. Now, next, if the impact is high, but so is the effort, this is one of your big projects. You want to again carefully reassess if it's actually paying into your goal and it's not just a shiny object. And if it does, it is in that bucket of important, probably not too urgent. You need to schedule it in so it becomes urgent and put it on your to-do list in that way. If something has low effort, low impact, this is something that you can just knock off, right? So those are kind of filler tasks. When I have, for example, a little bit of free time between meetings and there's nothing like bigger from my to-do list that I could start, I like to take those filler tasks. And if something has high effort but low impact, I try to not do it at all. right? Because it would just slow me down. Now, another way to look at this is must-haves, should-haves, could-haves, and would-haves. So a Moscow matrix. For some people, it's easier to look at the things that they brain dumped from that lens of what I must do, what I should do, what I could do, and what I wouldn't do, what I should not do. Right? Now, here's one thing, especially for my fellow recovering people pleasers out there. Very, very often we will have something urgent and perceived important on our task list that we're actually doing for others because we struggle to set expectations and boundaries and say no. For me, this has been a year-long journey. And in a recent interview that I had with Layla Hormozi in the last year, she actually unlocked for me how to break down the skill of boundary setting into smaller sub-skills. And I really practiced this, and I can't tell you how much time this opened up for me and how much productivity this opened up for me. So if you're interested in learning more about that, we will link to that interview where she helped me to understand how to think about setting boundaries in smaller sub-skills. And that really, really was helpful. So if you, somebody who's struggling with setting boundaries, who's struggling with setting no's, look at those tasks and see where is something that is actually like a should, because I think others expect it from me, or they actually expect it from me, but it's actually not aligned with my goals and what I want for myself, and where I should probably have one of those little bit uncomfortable conversations now to set myself free in the future. All right, so all of these matrices and efforts, they should lead to you having a daily to-do list. If you're not having a daily to-do list, it will be very, very hard to streamline your productivity. But once you have that, you can move from the what you're working on to the how you're working on it. Now, I can just tell you how I'm working on my daily to-do list for maximum productivity. So first things is that I am ranking my priorities, the things that I need to get done on that day, from the thing that I like least doing to the things that I like most doing, from the things that need the most mental capacity to the things that need the least mental capacity. My mental capacity is strongest, biggest in the morning, and I'm fatiguing during the day, and my decision fatigue and my mental capacity is lowest in the evening and in the night. So I will put easier tasks that have less mental drain, that need less decisions, in the evenings, and I will do the most challenging tasks right away in the morning. There's this book from, I think he's called Brian Tracy, that's called Eat Your Frog. And so basically I'm trying to eat my frog, to do the most uncomfortable thing right away, to free up that mental capacity and not have to live with the dread. And that gives me personally a lot of momentum. I've noticed with many of my members that for them it works the other way around. So they need to actually start with important things, but that are smaller and easier for them to accomplish. And so they kind of level up in momentum towards those more challenging tasks that they dread. So they're working their way up towards swallowing the frog, versus I like to swallow it right away and then moving up to the easier tasks. Another thing that's important when it comes to working on the task is focus. You really want to allow for deep focus time. And so that's easy once you shut down all communication channels to you. So no open email, no open social media, no open school, no open tabs on your browser, just the task in front of you. So nothing can disrupt your to-do list and your focus. And what I like to do is I like to track the time that the task takes, and I jump from one task to the next task on my to-do list without breaks. Now, I do have scheduled breaks in my day, and that brings me to the next point, which is managing my energy. So recently I did a big video around managing my energy and creating my own fuel, and we're going to link it somewhere here. And I want to add to this video when it comes to managing my energy from a very real kind of physical sense. So I do get my 8 hours of sleep every night. I worked on my sleep hygiene. I blocked all short form content on my phone, and I love to fall asleep to a certain meditation that just helps me to pass out quickly. I do hydrate right away in the morning. I don't overdo coffee anymore. And during my work, so I drop my son off around 8 in daycare, and I pick him up anywhere from 1:30 all the way to 2:30. So during that time, I will have short scheduled breaks for doing some physical movement. So I typically will do pull-ups, push-ups, lunges, and squats, and I track the number of those on a daily basis. They have become keystone habits for me. And I will also try every day to walk at least 30 minutes on my treadmill. Sometimes I'm working 2.5, 3 hours on the treadmill. I'm just walking like really, really slow, but I really try to get that physical movement in. I also try to eat a lot of protein, right? So 1 gram per pound body weight at the moment, and I'm avoiding processed food as much as I possibly can. And that just helps me to have a functioning system. I know it sounds so basic, but so many people don't do it. And it's just really, really hard to run efficiently if you're sabotaging your health in that way, right? You're just working against you. Another big component of this is managing your emotions and managing your energy levels. And again, I've made a detailed video about this, so I don't necessarily want to repeat myself. And the next thing, as in how you're working on those tasks, is, I already mentioned this, I track my time. When I have my to-do list, I actually write my estimates next to it, how long I think that this task will take, right? So sometimes a task takes longer than I anticipate. And what can happen is that I will get frustrated. Frustration basically occurs when our expectation about how long the task will take or how difficult it will be or what it will entitle doesn't match the reality. And then especially when we have a sense of urgency coming up because, for example, we need to pick up our child from daycare, we can spiral into an unproductive state. So one thing that I really needed to learn is to how to cope with my frustration about these tasks in a healthy way. So I will breathe through it, I will reframe the situation, and then most importantly, I will gain a realistic expectation about what it will take to complete this task and how I need to rearrange my priorities and who I need to communicate with because I had to make these changes. In the past, and I know that this is something that happens for so many of my students, I would not cope in a healthy way. I would either this place where I would let out my emotions, or I would just push the task away and jump to something else, right? So I would basically, instead of finding a way to work through the task, rearrange priorities and manage my emotions, I would go and I would change the plan. And changing the plan is the last thing that you want to do. Just because there's an obstacle coming up on your path towards that goal doesn't mean you change the goal. It means you find a way to overcome that obstacle. It's something I really had to train myself on. So when you work in that way, that you have a daily to-do list and you know that you're knocking off tasks and you're making those estimates around how long things will take, and you're catching yourself when you're getting into that state of frustration, and you can actually hold yourself accountable to not changing plan but working through, this will unlock a completely new level of productivity and achievement in your business for you. This is a huge skill that a lot of people are lacking, and it took me years to be able to articulate that this is what we need to do. We need to find a way to work for the task. A great way is to break down the task into smaller chunks, right? To really try to understand what it is all about. And then again, develop a more realistic hypothesis around what skills and resources and time it will take to actually complete the task, right? And then you can assess this because you have new information around impact and effort that it will take, and you can rearrange your priorities. But just because you're changing your priorities doesn't mean you change the plan. It means that you're realigning things to be more efficient, but you're not changing the direction. You keep the direction, very, very important. You keep the direction, but you're reorganizing priorities and you're managing your emotions through. Now, when you're tracking your time and you're having this frustration, now you know how to handle it. Now you know how to reset your expectations, right? And do another bat and eventually work through. The other side of that is that often we are changing course because the things that we do are boring for us. So it's not that they're particularly challenging, it's that they're particularly known, and for that reason we're seeking something that has more excitement. Again, the time tracking comes in really handy for me because I use the time tracking to just gamify the task, right? So I see how fast can I do this? Can I get this done more efficiently? How can I improve my workflow? And with that added layer of challenge, I add that interest that it needs for me to keep doing the thing, right? To keep taking that action that is required, again, to guide me towards my goal. Now, the beautiful thing is when you track based on your list, estimated time, actual time, you cannot excuse my language, bullshit yourself around what you're actually working on. So this is one exercise that I actually have sent so many of my students back in, is when they would come to coaching calls week after week, right? And they would be frustrated with their progress, but every single week they would come up with things that are not the things that we agreed on that they work on. Once they then agreed to tracking their time for a week, the first thing that happened was that they actually started to work on the things that we agreed on, just because of the baked in accountability of writing down and tracking what you do. It just adds another layer of consciousness, another layer of cognition. And then they also would be often shocked around their net time worked on tasks that are paying into the goal, that are moving towards the goal, versus random work they created for themselves that was not important and not urgent. So very, very important. Track your time. Allow only the tasks that you determined in the morning. Don't change your priorities because it's challenging or because it's boring. Last but not least, I always recommend in the how we're working on that we are including a debriefing time. So I like to do this 15 minutes before I pick up my son. I will sit down and I will record myself with Loom, and I will talk through my thoughts as I have perceived that workday, and challenges that came up and things that were important towards documenting my growth journey. And again, if you want to deeply understand why that's important, watch that business plan video. For me, it helps me to reflect on that day. The reflection helps me to optimize on the next day. And the recording, the transcript of that recording, also is a foundation for my future digital products and courses and content. So it's really important for me to have that. So include some debriefing time at the end of your day. And then guess what? On the next day, you repeat it. And the repetition also makes you a lot faster. So I hope you found this helpful. Like I said, it's shockingly, hopefully not too boringly, simple to do that. The crux lies in committing to it and actually holding yourself like that every single day for today and tomorrow and the next week and the years to come. If you want to learn more about how I'm managing my energy, then I would recommend you check out this video next. And thank you so much for watching. I hope I see you in the next one.